Are you planning to upgrade your garage door? Before diving into installation, there's one crucial step that can make or break your project: framing the garage door opening. In this video, I'll walk you through every detail of framing your garage door, from essential tools to insider tips for smooth installation. Stick around to learn how a well-framed garage door can enhance the durability, efficiency, and look of your space. Let's dive in. Framing a garage door may seem like a simple job, but if you want it to last and function well, it requires careful measurements and attention to detail. Think of it as creating the foundation for your door's installation. With the right framing, the door will fit snugly, open smoothly, and keep out the elements. So, whether you're looking to maximize insulation, prevent water intrusion, or just make sure your door looks great, I'll show you each step to get there. Tools and materials needed. Before we start, let's gather some tools and materials you'll need. Here's a quick rundown. Tape measure for precise measurements. Pencil to mark your cuts and measurements. Circular saw or bandsaw, depending on the materials and cuts you prefer. Framing nails and a nail gun or hammer for securing everything in place. Bought 3 pieces of 2x6-inch lumber or PVC for the door jambs, depending on whether you prefer wood or PVC. Additionally, make sure you have enough lumber to cover the height and width of the opening and some extra to bridge the gap between the header and ceiling. Understanding rough and finished openings. To begin, let's clarify 2 important terms: rough openings and finished openings. A rough opening is essentially the space that the garage door will occupy, with a bit of extra room around the edges. It gives you enough clearance to work with and ensures the door and its tracks can fit without issues. The finished opening, on the other hand, is what you see after the framing is complete. It's the precise measurement where the door will eventually be seated. Remember, most garage doors require ½ inch of space on each side between the door and the jamb for a proper fit. Alright, now that we've covered the basics, let's start framing. Step 1. Measure the rough opening. Accurate measurements are the foundation of a well-framed door, so grab your tape measure and let's go through the key measurements you'll need to record. First, measure the distance from the garage floor to the top of the rough header. This should be 1½ inches taller than the door itself. For example, if your door is 7 feet tall, the header should be at 7 feet, 1½ inches. Next, measure the width of the rough opening. This should be 3 inches wider than the door to give you that ½ inch clearance on each side. So, for a 16-foot wide door, the rough opening should be 16 feet, 3 inches. And don't forget to check the header space itself. You'll want it to be about 9 inches wider than the door to allow for some flexibility. Now that we've got these measurements, it's time to install the head jamb. Step 2. Installing the head jamb. Now that we have our measurements, it's time to start building the frame, beginning with the head jamb. Installing the head jamb first helps ensure that your side jambs will sit flush against the header. Using the measurements you recorded, cut your framing material to size. Then, secure the head jamb to the opening with framing nails, making sure it's nice and level. This head jamb will support the top of the door and will be the anchor for the rest of the frame. Step 3. Install the interior side posts. Next up, we're going to install 2 interior side posts. These posts will support the garage door's tracks on the inside of your garage, so they're a crucial part of the framing. To get the right fit, measure from the floor to the ceiling inside the garage. Cut 2 posts to match this height, and then nail them into place on each side of the opening. These posts form what's often called the goal post, with the head jamb acting as the crossbar. This structure will stabilize the frame, especially as you add the side jambs. Installing the side jambs. Now it's time to add the side jambs, which will give the opening its final dimensions. For this, you'll need to cut 2 pieces of lumber to match the height of your garage door. Keep in mind, the side jambs should be 1/4 inch shorter than the door itself. This tiny gap will prevent the jambs from scraping against the floor. Nail these side jambs into place so that they're flush with the head jamb and interior side posts. Make sure they're perfectly plumb. Any tilt or unevenness here will throw off the entire frame. Step 5. Attach the center bracket framing. Lastly, let's add the center bracket framing. This step is essential if you're installing a spring system, as it will anchor the spring's center bracket. To install, measure the space between the top of the header and the ceiling. Cut a piece of lumber to this measurement and position it at the center of the frame. Secure it tightly, as it'll be responsible for supporting the door's weight during operation. Once installed, you'll have a robust frame ready for the garage door installation. Now that we've built the frame, let's go over some final tips and considerations. First, if you're adding insulation or weather stripping around the door, make sure to leave a little extra room when framing. Many insulation strips are between 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick, so make your frame slightly wider if needed. Also, remember that your garage jamb should sit slightly above the foundation to prevent water damage. A good rule of thumb is to leave an 1/8 of an inch gap between the jamb and the foundation to keep water from seeping into the wood. Finally, double check that everything is level and plumb. Uneven framing can cause issues with door alignment and sealing, so don't skip this step. If your floor is sloped, you may need to adjust the header height or add shims to get a perfect fit. Framing a garage door isn't always smooth sailing. Here are some common issues and quick fixes. If you have a sloping garage floor, for instance, you may need to drop the header a bit or add filler boards to keep the frame level. If you need to raise or lower the door slightly, use 2x4s or plywood as spacers at the bottom of the header. For tight spaces, check with your door manufacturer to ensure you have enough room for the tracks and rollers. A 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch on either side is often enough, but always confirm with the manufacturer's guidelines. Outro and final advice. And that's it. You now have a detailed frame ready for your garage door installation. Remember, the key to a successful garage door installation is precision. Taking the time to measure and install your frame correctly will save you from future headaches and ensure a smooth, functional garage door.